We're on page 346. Maran, Sif Hey. Lo yivtza. A person should not split the bread, cut the bread, slice the bread, rip the bread. Whatever you do to your bread. Ad sheviu lefanav melach, until they bring in front of you, what's melach?
Salt.
Salt. Or liftan. What is liftan? That's a hard one. In parentheses, perush, that means kol davar hanechal im hapat. Anything you eat with bread. So what is liftan?
Oh, almost said butter.
Hummus,
Like all your little.
china, matbucha. Okay, maybe butter if you're from that side of the world. Guacamole if you're from that side of the world. You get the idea. The things you eat with bread. Lilafet bo, I don't know. Pirusat habetzian. You have to have salt or some other substance in order to eat the bread of hamotzi with. Meaning you can't cut the bread, which means you shouldn't say the hamotzi until that thing is there. V'im hi nikiya. And if the bread is clean. What does mean nikiya? Clean bread, as opposed to?
Clean.
I don't know, it's like bread full of salt.
Okay, not full of salt. What did you say, Dad?
Dry.
Dry.
Like
You know, there's
nothing.
bread of inferior quality and bread of superior quality. So sometimes there's bread that,
It has like sand from the oven.
yeah, it's not pure bread. It's something that has like the husks of the wheat that are still there, or something that has all the, you know, the chaff, whatever else is there. It's there in the bread. What? No, not something that's done intentionally like
Whole
this.
grain.
Yeah, today you call whole grain bread. Okay, I'm in trouble.
Oh, you know, let me switch up with you.
If it's real quality bread, or shehi metubelet betavlin, or if it's seasoned with seasoning, like what? Like your everything bagel. Or b'melach, or it has salt on it, ke'en shelanu, like our bread. It doesn't have to be on top of the bread. It could be in the bread too. The bread that you eat is seasoned bread or unseasoned bread. The challah you make at home, seasoned or unseasoned?
It's supposed to be unseasoned.
The challah you eat at home, is it seasoned or unseasoned?
Season.
Well, it's got maybe a little salt.
Well, I mean, judging from like our Shabbats with those brown ones, I mean, they're pretty well seasoned, right? You know, those
What's in the challah? Tell me the ingredients.
Water.
Wheat.
Water,
flour.
flour,
Salt.
salt. See? It's ready to do what else?
Yeast.
Yeast, poppy seeds,
Sugar.
If you really,
sugar,
Onion.
if you really,
and challah, the ones that taste like a cake, onions, okay, all kinds of things you
But
The
might
Those
add.
ones that
controversy is
talk-
egg, though, right?
Eggs,
Is,
okay.
chocolate
right.
chips is also controversial.
I was in a
Yum.
place where this was, this is chocolate chip marshmallow fluff challah. I said, that's not a challah, that's a cake.
It's a cake.
that you made in the shape of a challah, but that's not,
That's our
let's not pretend that's food, you know, your parents were here, they'd get upset at you. This is the bread that you eat today is metubah. Where do you buy bread that's not seasoned?
Matzah.
Matzah. Matzah is an unseasoned bread, that's right. Matzah is just flour and water.
Tortilleria.
A tortilla. Well, sometimes today tortillas get fancy.
Yeah, that's right. You get.
They have
fancy
salt.
tortillas.
They have lime juice and some of
Salsa
them. They
built
got
in.
salsa built in.
Yeah, I saw that. They have one like that. Yeah.
A built-in salsa
built-in
option.
Yeah.
It's not in Madeira. They don't have tortillas like that.
In Sprouts, they have it.
Yeah, I was just saying that sprouted bread. It's got a lot of vegetables in there.
A
But
classic case of that. We would buy the Arabs in Yerushalayim. We would buy our pitot from the Arabs. They taste like nothing. Flour and water. You could taste the tap water in the bread.
Oh wow.
It's not even salt. Nothing. It's just flour and water. That's the reason you have to dip your bread into something. It's because it doesn't have flavor.
Mm.
But being that your bread already has salt, already has flavor, so you don't have to dip your bread into anything.
Wow.
wait, don't we need to dip it 3 times in the salt?
Wait, don't get to Kabbalah yet.
Oh.
Now next. Oh, shnitkaven lechol pat chareva. Or if you planned intentionally to eat plain tasting bread, meaning You don't like salt. You don't like hummus. You just want you want to eat the matzah plain. That's how you like it. So it's not like you were waiting for someone to bring you salt so you could eat your bread. It's when you buy a pita from the Arabs, you know they give you in a little baggie. They a little brown thing they give you.
I don't see that.
They take za'atar
Oh, za'atar
and they
spice.
twist it in a knot and they put it in your bag with your pita. Because they don't even expect you to eat this bread on its own. Everyone knows you don't eat this bread. You a little olive oil, a little za'atar, and that's how you eat your bread. So if you were the guy who's hey, hold the za'atar, I don't want it. I just like my pita like this. So you don't have to dip your bread in anything, because that's the way you want to eat the bread. And not tzich you don't have to wait at all. Along comes the Rama. The Rama says, Haga, no. ומכל מקום, nonetheless, מצווה להביא על כל שולחן מלח קודם שיבצע. It's a mitzvah. It doesn't really mean it's one of the 613 mitzvot. It means it's the right thing to do, to bring salt to the table before you do hamotzi. Not so that you will dip the bread in the salt. You don't want the salt. Your bread already has salt. כי השולחן דומה למזבח. Because the table is compared to an altar, to the mizbeach in the temple. V'achila kikorban, and eating is compared to a sacrifice. V'nehmar, and it says in the Torah, al kol korbanecha takriv melach, and all of your sacrifices you have to have salt. You bring salt to the table because on the mizbeach there always was salt. And he throws in an extra credit, and it saves you from all kinds of bad things that might happen. Salt is protective. See, Baruch, I promised I would take it to Kabbalah, right? So this halakha obviously has with it its whole conversation about dipping the bread. Let me tell you now, we'll start with the end before we get to the beginning. According to Kabbalah, in the Arizah, it doesn't make a difference whether your bread has salt in it, whether you like the bread with salt, you don't like the bread with salt. You have to dip your bread in salt. And according to some of the Mekubalim, you must dip your bread in the salt 3 times. That is where the minhag comes from, which is why I always tell people, if on Shabbat you are dipping your bread in salt, which already has salt in it, if you do this whole sprinkling the salt on the bread, or you tossing the salt in the bread, or you dip it once in the bread, just don't pretend to do any of that stuff, because according to halakha, you don't have to dip your bread in salt today. According to the Mekubalim, you have to, but you have to do it 3 times. So either follow the Mekubalim all the way, or don't. But don't make a mockery of pretending to follow the Mekubalim when you don't. I don't know anyone today, in our community at least, who regularly eats bread with no flavor at the Shabbat. There's something in the bread already that they give it a flavor. And if those who eat it without a flavor, it's because that's the way they like to eat their bread. So in any case, I don't know anybody who has to dip the bread in the salt. Which is why sometimes you'll notice when people don't bring salt, I rarely ask for someone to bring the salt. The only reason I ask someone to bring the salt is because there's someone at the table bothering me why there's no salt on the table. Because of that, I say, okay, bring the salt. When I see they forget, I don't care, who cares?
No,
For me, there's always some salt stuck in the challah board anyways. So according to that opinion, that there needs to be salt on the table, I already solved that problem.
I've seen some people, when they don't have salt, they just dip the bread in another piece of bread.
Right. So the
Oh,
reason,
because
but
it
I'll
has
tell you, the Isha, if I could dabble in Kabbalah a little bit, I'm not a Mekuban. I'm just telling you what I read. It seems the idea of dipping the bread in salt 3 times is corresponding to 3 times Hashem's name. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yinoch, Hashem is king, Hashem was king, Hashem is king, Hashem will be king forever and ever. Hashem's name in Gematria is
26.
26. 26 times 3?
78.
78. What's the gematria of bread? Lechem?
Long enough is like 50.
78. The gematria of melach? Same letters as
Same
lechem.
letters, yeah.
78. There's something to do here with 3 times Hashem's name. And because of that, the Mekubalim are particular that it should be salt and that it should be lechem. But my assumption is those who you see dipping their bread in their bread are trying to get the lechem, and if not lechem and melach, then lechem and lechem. Because they realize they're not dipping the bread for any taste purpose, but only for some kind of Kabbalistic purpose. Does it work? I don't know. You have to ask your local resident Kabbalist. But do people do it? I've seen people do it. So from here, you might have to understand that all the things that people do on Shabbat, nobody knows what they're doing so far. If it's the slicing of the bread beforehand, if it's the how much bread they cut, if it's now with dipping the bread in salt, why are you so particular about the salt? Who cares? The whole week you eat bread without salt, right? You dip your bread in salt the whole week?
No.
The whole week you do hamotzi without salt on the table, correct? So what happened on Shabbat? Things changed. Meaning Shabbat doesn't have its own hamotzi category. These halachot here are the halachot for Shabbat also.
I take it back. I do in the morning when I have a piece of toast.
You dip your bread in salt? Okay. How many people are particular when they go to the pizza store to dip their bread in salt?
Ooh,
Their pizza.
Think about it. I'm asking you a question. That's a real question I'm asking. You get a shawarma and a lafa. You dip your shawarma into salt. So, I mean, the people are already showing you that this halakha is not relevant to them. Why do they keep doing it on Shabbat? You can add it to the list of questions you're going to ask after 120 years. Maybe they're going to ask us. I don't know. They also don't know why we're doing what we're doing. Let's read the halachot in the book. On page 346, Yud Aleph. Eno reshai liftzoa. It's forbidden for a person to cut the bread, or levarech, or to make a blessing of hamutzi, ad she'aviu lefanav menach or liftan, until they bring either salt or some other dip, kedei she'yitbol behem et hapat, so you can dip your bread inside of it. Literally, so you could season your bread with it. Tibol also could be to do. Let's look at the bottom of the page. There's a footnote tet. It's the last 2 lines on the page. You see that? Yeah? בברכות, in tractate ברכות, in Talmud, אין הבוצע רשאי לפצוע עד שיביאו מלח או לפתן. The person who is making hamutzi cannot cut the bread until they bring salt or liftan to him. וכן פרסקו הרמב"ם, the Rambam rules the same way. That tool, the tool also, והשולחן ערוך, כאן. And that's what Maran is ruling above. And that's where Maran gets his halakha from. ואין בחידושי הרעה, look at the חידושי הרעה שכתב, he writes, דמקמי הכי לא חזו למיכל, ועד לא חז למיכל, לא חז לרוחם. From his words, משמע מדבריו, דדין זה קהל הברכה, שאינו רשאי לברך קודם שהביאו מלח לפתן. The way that Raha understands this, it's not that you are not able to eat the bread. You can't eat the bread without making a bracha, and therefore if you can't eat the bread without dipping in salt, you can't make the bracha until you have salt. Vayena Mishnah Bu'am, in the left column of 347, look at the Mishnah Bu'am, B'Shar Tzion, Shevigam B'Shem Ba'al Echad Gelot, V'Haruch, that he brought the same thing in the opinion of the Ba'al Halachot Gedolot, and Aruch. The Bahag, I quoted him today. Bahag is the famous Chacham who decided that his opinion is that when a lady lights Shabbat candles, that's when she accepts Shabbat on her. Here's where that idea comes from. Uvehad ba'inan melach, and that which you need salt. Ayin b'Rashi, look in Rashi, shekatav, he writes, leve'er hadelo haveh hefsek, ben hamotzi l'tiyimah, mipnei she'af zot tzarich b'cha shtei prusa sheb'cha nechel b'tan. Rashi wants to know how it's not an interruption to dip the bread in salt between making the hamotzi and eating the bread. It's because in order to eat the bread, you need to dip it in salt. And because of that, it's not an interruption, because that's part of eating the bread.
It's like the bread's not complete without the salt.
Exactly. Okay, let's leave the footnotes here. The reason why they bring the salt before the bracha is so that you won't remember after the bracha to start looking for salt. It's all practical. 347 under the two lines. V'im hayom mesubim rabim, and if there were many people at the meal, tzarich le'amtin ad sheviu melech v'le'kol echad v'echad. You have to wait until they bring salt before every single person. So it's not enough that you have salt. Everyone has to have salt. V'im echad mevarech u'botzeh le'kulam, but if one is making the bracha and cutting bread for everybody, dai b'kam she'no melech v'anav. It's enough that only he has salt. And he will dip every bread in salt before he gives it. He will give the salted piece of bread to every person who's sitting at the table, and that seems to be what we do today, correct? We don't have little bowls of salt all over the table. Rather, the one who hands out the bread of hamotzi, he should make sure that he hands it around with salt. What happens if you make a hamotzi already, and you realize you don't have anything to dip the bread? No salt, no madbucha, no... What do you do?
And you should just go ahead and eat the bread.
That's what you would think, right? That's what I thought too.
Oops. Mayonnaise.
I mean, in practicality, that's what we're talking about, is all our bread is already seasoned.
V'im berech b'kat hamotzi, if you already made hamotzi, kodem sheviu lefan melech liftan, before they brought you the salt or the liftan, yivtzat apat, you should cut the bread, v'yamtin ma'at melechol ad sheviu lefanav melech liftan, and you should wait a few moments until they bring you the salt, before you eat it. In today's world, it's not relevant anyways. Your bread already has flavor to it, so there's no reason for you to wait for anyone to bring you anything. On page 348, Im hayta pat nekiya v'yafa. If the bread was clean and refined, it means a nice loaf of bread. Kigon pat chitim, like wheat bread, as opposed to
They keep talking about
you had barley bread or spelt, perhaps. Those are the flours are thicker, they're heavier. You have a nice loaf of flour bread. Or shetam tubelet umutemet, or the bread that you have has seasoned or flavored. Or shekvar natnu melech bapat, they already put salt in the bread. And tzarich minadin lidbol apat b'melech u'b'liftan. There is no halachic reason to dip the bread anymore in the salt or anything else. What do you say? Oren's mother made us challah the Shabbat. They had rosemary there. What did I taste there?
Usually on the outside there's
There's some spice, right?
Yeah.
So that bread already had flavor. So why do you have to dip it in something?
Mekubalim.
Kubalim, that's right. It's because Aaron is descended from the Mekubalim of Baghdad. I was afraid of him. That's why I had to dip it in the salt. ואפילו אם לא הייתה הפת נקייה ומטובלת כלל, somehow became your fault. If the bread is not refined bread or it's not seasoned, אלא הייתה פת חרבה, it's just plain bread. אלא שמתחילה קודם שיברך נתכוון למצוא הפת בלא טיבול במלח ובלפן, but before you made the blessing, you wanted to eat plain bread. אין צריך מן הדין לטבלה במלח ובלפן. There is no halachic requirement for you to dip the bread in the salt. I mean, even the bread is plain. Though you want to eat it plain, you have the intention before you made the bracha to eat it plain, you have no halachic obligation to dip it in bread. Page 349. ואם אף על פי שהייתה הפת נקייה ומטובלת רצה להמתין עד שיביא לפניו מלח. And in a situation where the bread is already seasoned, but you still want to wait for them to bring you salt. Why? You're mekuba. רשאי לעשות כן, you're allowed to wait. ואין זה נחשב להפסק בינתיים בברכת המוציא. It's not a... we know it's not a... אבל אחר ברכת... It's amazing. We created a halakha. Watch the creation of halakha. Are you allowed to make a hefsek between the Tanat Yadayim and Hamotzi? Yes. So he's saying, don't worry, you can make a hefsek if you want to wait for salt, even if the bread is seasoned, because it's okay to make a hefsek. Meaning, he's not telling you the halakha straight. Halakha is you could do whatever you want then, between washing your hands and making hamotzi. We already learned this halakha. Where's the problem really? The problem really is between
After you bless the
after
bread.
you bless the bread before you eat it. אבל אחר ברכת המוציא, but once you already said המוציא, לכתחילה, ideally, לא ימתין עד שיביאו מלך. You should not wait until they bring you bread.
לכתחילה.
Oh,
You should not wait till they bring you salt.
salt, I'm sorry. Bring you salt, yes.
So he says should not, but he says you cannot wait.
He doesn't say you cannot, and again, he's being affected by the opinions of those who say that you could either still choose to bring salt, either for taste reasons, or for Kabbalah reasons, or for whatever else. I don't like it. I'm not arguing, I don't. Okay, now you remember that the Ramah says that the salt will protect you? What exactly do you need protection from? Like, what are you doing wrong at the table that you need protection from? You're just sitting around waiting for the chalat to be cut. What's happening here? All of this is based on Midrash. Okay, the Midrash is on page 350. אף על פי שנתבאר לאל, even though we said above בסעיף הקודם, in the previous סעיף, שמן הדין אין צריך לטבל הפת במלח כלשהי, פת נקייה ומטובלת. That we said you don't have to dip the bread in salt at all if it's already seasoned. או שנטו במלח already has salt. מכל מקום ראוי ונכון שיטבול פתאום במלח בכל עניין. It seems that nonetheless you should still dip your bread in salt. מפני שאמרו במדרש, because the Midrash says the following words. שכאשר ישראל יושבים ליד השולחן, when the Jewish people wait by the table, וממתינין זה לזה שיטו ידיהם, and they wait for each other to wash their hands. והם בלא מצוות, and they're sitting there meanwhile without any מצוות. השטן מקטרג עליהם. The Satan prosecutes us, says bad things. Look at all the Jews sitting around waiting for nothing, not doing mitzvot. וברית מלח מגן עליהם, and the covenant of the salt protects the Jewish people. That's the Midrash. Have a solution. Learn Torah. I never understood that because you can talk, why people talk. The times you're not in Hamotzi, you should make it a minhag in your house. You come to the table. You're the Balabayit. You come to the table with a book and you read. Until all the people finish washing their hands, you have time. I'm convinced that if you buy yourself a book and you make a seder, kavua, you only learn this book for the 10 minutes it takes everybody to wash their hands for the meal.
You finish Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah, you could finish entire books like that. For real, I'm saying now for real. Ben Ishchai, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or whatever, books of Tanakh, you want to do Tanakh, you could finish entire thing. You have 3 meals like that on Shabbat. You have by the nighttime, by the daytime, and by Surah Shit. Let's say you do them in the Beit HaKnesset, so by the nighttime meal. At my house, at least 10 minutes it takes to wash their hands. Why do you have to chit-chat with anybody? Sit in your chair and learn. You might set an example for other people. I was once at somebody's house where you can't eat in the house unless you have a Dvar Torah to say the meal. So they hand around books before the meal. Everyone should prepare something. That's a good time. Tell your guests, say, shh, don't talk. You have a Dvar Torah ready? Oh, you're not going to ready? Prepare. Go to my bookcase, get a book, prepare. I'll tell you the truth, it's not a nice thing to do. Because some people are really afraid of sharing in public. Some people don't like to speak in public. Some people don't have a Dvar Torah to share. So don't put people on the spot. It's not so nice. But the idea behind it is still true. Set an example. You want to talk, fine. Make sure that everybody knows that by the time between washing hands and hamotzi, you're giving a shiur. That's when you say your Dvar Torah. That way they keep quiet. They wash their hands. And you say Dvar Torah until hamotzi. Fine. There's a lot of ways to do mitzvot. So the Satan doesn't say anything about you. To learn Torah. V'yesh natnu tam lezeh. Some gave a reason for this. Mipnei shamu Chazal, because Chazal saying sheshulchano shel adam domeh lemizbeach. The table is similar to the altar, the mizbeach. Correct? We know that already from the Ramah. He's just paraphrasing the Ramah. Shneimar it says in Chazkel v'deber lei zeh hashulchan shefnei Adonai. This is the table that is before Hashem. Umchaper b'mkom mizbeach. We say that the person's table atones for their avarot like the mizbeach did. And this is an interesting thing because what does it really mean? The table atones, it's like the table is the altar, the food you eat is the mizbech. And it's interesting, I got to look into and say, why exactly is it this way? But that's the other reason for it. On page 351, under the two lines, וגם לדעת רבנו האריזל, and even according to the opinion of רבנו האריזל, והמקובלים, יש טבול הפת במלח חברת המוציא בכל עניין. You should dip the bread in salt after hamotzi, regardless of what the situation is. You like plain bread, the bread already has salt. ויש מרבותינו מקובלים, and some of our rabbis, the מקובלים, שכתבו they write שיש לטבל הפת במלח 3 פעמים, 3 times. לטבול, I really don't know. לטבול or לטבל? לטבול is probably the right one. Why? Because לטבל, season, is l'taf. Yeah, makes sense. When I said earlier, l'taveh literally means season is a mistake. It was, I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. Yes?
So according to Mekubalim, it's 1 dip or 3 dips.
Uh-huh.
There you get your choice.
Fight. The Rashash, the Chida, the Kavachayim, Rav Chaim Palaji, the first Lubavitch Rebbe, they all say 3 times. That's how they understand what the Kabbalah is saying. Those seem pretty mainstream Mekubalim to me. Yeah? I'm embarrassed of a mistake of the Tabir and Lidibol. It happens.
They misspelled it, you're saying?
No. I was pronouncing sometimes it incorrect. I don't know why it just hit me here. I guess that was the... That's fine. Page 351. Maran. Okay, let's start with Maran. If we get through as much as we'll get through, we'll see. This is a general rule in Hifsek. We always talk about Hifsek, but this is an important concept about not interrupting between making a blessing and eating the food. So whatever you see here, you could also probably extrapolate to other cases. Yochal miyad, you should eat immediately. V'lo yasiach min bracha la'achila, and you should not speak at all between the blessing and eating the food. What constitutes speaking? Sounds with your mouth. Don't sing songs. Don't say psukim. Don't play charades. You said hamotzi, eat bread. Zil. That's what your next job is. Vim sach, what happens if you do speak? You do sing a song? You do something? Tzarich nachzor dvarech. You have to go back and say the blessing again. I mean, your first blessing was in vain, it doesn't count. Unless the speech was necessary, was connected to what it was that you were making the blessing about. Meaning, you can't have an interruption from a hamotzi if what you spoke about was about hamotzi. So, for example, kagon sheberech al hapat, you made a hamotzi on the bread. V'kodem shiochan, before you ate, amar hiviu melech oliftan, bring bread or salt. Tnu leplan lechol, let so and so eat. Tnu machal behema, make sure to feed the animal. V'chayotze be'elu, anything in that category, enot tzarich lavarech, you don't have to repeat and make a blessing, because all of those things, even though you probably shouldn't have said them there, they are directly connected to eating and to the hamotzi blessing you were making, and therefore you don't have to go back and repeat them. Now, whenever you read a Rama, the question is the Rama arguing with Maran, or is Rama agreeing with Maran? Let's read the next sentence of Rama. Haga. U'mikom makom, nonetheless, the chatchila lo yafsik klal. You shouldn't speak at all. Ideally, you shouldn't speak at all. Is he arguing with Maran, or agreeing with Maran?
He's agreeing.
I think he's agreeing. I think he's saying you ideally shouldn't do this, but if you did it, it's okay. It's not like you should say hamotzi and start talking about feeding your animals.
Talk about feeding your animals because the halacha to feed them.
Before you eat. It's a question if it's a halacha or a chumrah. There's an argument among the poskim about that. Many understand to be a halakha. I once wrote something about this. I think when it became relevant to me was when I got a cat. I didn't get a cat. A cat got me. A cat moved into my backyard. So now the question was my obligations to feed it before I eat. After I don't want to go not a Gehenna because of a cat, you know. So I had to learn the halachot of these things. I once wrote something about it. The machlokes rishonim, how you understand that you have to feed the animals first. Is that an obligation that you must feed the animals first, or it's a suggestion that you feed the animals first?
Also, is it your cat?
Oh, that's a good question. Is it my cat? By the way, where does that have a ramification? Is it my cat or not? You're not allowed to feed your animal meat and milk mixtures. You can give your animal shrimp, and you can give your animal all kinds of non-kosher things, but you can't give your animal meat and milk mixed together, because you have a prohibition against getting benefit from anything that has a meat and milk should come in, right? It says in the Torah 3 times. Do not cook a goat in its mother's milk. From here, our rabbis learned it's prohibiting the act of cooking them together, the act of eating them when they're cooked together, and the act of getting any benefit, like selling it. You know, like you could work technically in a McDonald's and sell pork chops, but cheeseburgers might get a little more tricky. No, I'm obviously rounding some corners because in order for it to be a problem, the cheese has to be kosher. The meat is an interesting question there. But here I'm saying in terms of halakha, it's meat and milk is more complicated than regular not kosher. People don't always see it that way, but it's more complicated in some ways. So you're not allowed to feed your pet food that has meat and milk, and you may think that's not so it's not so hard, but it is. Most of the pet foods have all kinds of animal products, and then they also have dried cheese inside of it, or some other dairy products in there. It became a problem with cat food. So my question was, well, maybe he's not really my cat. He's a stray cat. So can I feed a stray cat meat and milk? There are poskim who say you could feed a stray cat meat and milk because it's not your cat. So it's not like you're feeding your cow or your horse or you're feeding an animal that you're going to use afterwards. This animal is not yours. But then some poskim said, well, why are you feeding it in the first place?
Yeah, you're benefiting from it.
If it's not yours, why are you giving it food? It's not like you're throwing him your leftovers, right? You're going to the store to buy food for him. My dad's the only guy in the world who ever went to the store to buy food for the stray cat. Probably right. In that point, he's your cat. Meaning, even if he doesn't live in your house, you don't think you own him, the fact that you care to feed him gives you some kind of benefit. In that situation, I decided that it has to be kasher cat food. It's an interesting predicament of 21st century America.
You still need to wait 3 hours between meat and milk?
The cat. Depends if he brushes his teeth or not. This is
Make a note to auction off 100 pounds of the cat food or 52 weeks of the cat food.
Depends upon how long
Yeah.
depends upon how long it's been since it licked parts of the body where you'll be required to wash your paws.
Okay. Bottom line is, I don't have a cat anymore. I don't have these problems anymore. But Pesach and meat and milk, those are two problems that pet owners have, and they don't always know. I know many people that, I don't know, they put aluminum foil on their windows for Pesach, and they bleach their floors, and they feed their cats and dogs chametz on Pesach. You can't have chametz to feed your dogs and cats on Pesach. It's also not a good idea to sprinkle matzah crumbs into your fish tank. Fish don't like matzah, just like you don't like matzah. You have to give the fish something they can eat. A lot of the food that you can get for fish, I once had a betta fish. You can buy them worms, it's gross, but you can buy them freeze-dried worms if it's too gross for you. Those are not chametz. You can feed them to your animals on Pesach. Dogs and cats, it's amazing. Dog and cat food, it's such garbage to feed the animals. It's mostly filler, all kinds of like grains and cereals they fill it with, and a little bit of meat flavor or something. Yeah, a dog wouldn't eat oatmeal all day. So what do? They put oatmeal with chicken flavor, and then the dog eats the oatmeal. It's
You can buy a grain-free.
Grain-free, okay. So the world is not. By the way, the grain-free stuff is probably the easier way to go for Pesach. Not necessarily for meat and milk, but for Pesach. That would be the way to go. If you're a mikubal, you want to make sure not to give to your dog or your cat any of the food that you eat at the Shabbat table. Especially not the challah of hamotzi. I see a lot of people, they cut they cut mama a slice, dad a slice, the kids a slice, and the dog gets a slice. Okay, listen, this is also lucky Moshe Chaim is not here. Moshe Chaim will make a taram about this.
So
About
why
pets and feeding pets.
So I guess
Americans are too lonely, that's why they have dogs and cats. Yeah, okay.
So you only give the dog a challah if it had a bark mitzvah.
Bark mitzvah. Okay.
And Jack's not even here for that one.
Let's start the notes on 351. You done it.
Oops, where's the Dylan?
It's in the middle. There's a bold line, and then underneath it there's Yud Daled. Achar sheberach birkat hamutzi. Once you said the blessing of hamutzi, yochal miyad, you should eat immediately. V'le'afsik b'dibur ben habracha leben hatima, and you shouldn't make any interruptions between eating and tasting. V'im hifsik b'dibur tzich lazor l'vechin. If you made a stop, you have to go back and eat. For me, this is always a problem at the Shabbat table when they start cutting slices or passing around slices. What's stopping you from eating a slice first? Because kiddush, they start pouring this cup, pouring that cup. It's what we do in our bit of mitzvah. We pour a cup before kiddush, and then we pass them out to everybody. They have their own winery. If you want to drink from my cup, you can drink from my cup after I do. But don't wait so long between making a blessing and tasting the food. In the brackets, v'hu adin is the same halacha. Linyan kol brachot haneni v'brachot mitzvot. All the brachot of foods and all the brachot on the mitzvot. Shemifsik b'dibur achar haberacha kodem l'tihima osiyat mitzvah shetzarich lazor l'varech. Anytime you talk after you do the mitzvah, the blessing before you do the mitzvah, you have to come back and make a blessing again. So you talk between putting on your talit, making a blessing on talit and putting on, before making a blessing on tefillin and putting on. You talk before putting up, after making a bracha on a mezuzah, before putting up the mezuzah. That's a problem. V'afilu hefsik b'amirat teva echad devad. Even if you only said one word, no. Yeah, you know the time. צריך לחזור לברך, you still have to go back and make a ברכה. וכן אין להפסיק לכתחילה בין הברכה לבין הטעימה בעשה מעשה שאינו מעניין הברכה.
New is relevant. You're saying, pass me the bread.
Yes or no? Here, you don't make a לכתחילה any interruption that's not part of the mitzvot, that of the meal, like not about salt or not about the bread. ועיין להלן, look later, שאין להפסיק אחר ברכה אפילו בשעה מועטת שיותר מדי דיבור. You cannot, לכתחילה, you shouldn't wait more time. Not לכתחילה, probably that's not halacha. From when you say the bracha till you taste the food, how much time can go by? It's called toch kedei dibur. What's toch kedei dibur?
Enough to have say a sentence. Or something?
Very good, yeah. Enough to say something. Which something? Shalom alecha ribi. Hello, my rabbi. If you wait longer than it says to say that, that's a hefsek. So remember all the people who are quiet after Niddat Yadayim because they don't want to make a hefsek, but they sit at the table for 20 minutes waiting for everybody to wash their hands quietly? Where did they got the idea that because they don't talk, it's not a hefsek? I will never understand. Even the Ramah there said, remember until you walk 22 amot, that's enough for it. So where they got the idea that sitting around quietly is any better than making noise, I don't know. As long as once you waited already a few seconds, it's already a hefsek. If you want to think about it like this, think about it like this. You call somebody, and they answer, and they say, hello, and you go, hello. How long can you wait before you respond hello before it gets weird? Just think about it like that. Why are you making a hamotzi dechminaritz? How long are you waiting until you do the hamotzi? It's very weird. It's an awkward thing to do. If you think of mitzvot like that, you're making a bracha in your tefillin. How long does it take you to put it? You make a bracha before you undo your talit. How long can you wait? It should be right before, immediately before you say a bracha. It's like this with everything. When we have to do things in proximity, to make sure they happen quickly. And uvda, in your real life, you do that. You would never say, hey, how are you? Good. That sounds, it's an interesting way to talk to people. And there are people who talk like that, but that's...
It's weird.
That's weird. Right, exactly right. That's what it is. Made bumper sticker. Don't make weird brachot, you know? 352. Remember, my problem is that right now this is going to run us for a few pages. I don't have time to run for a few pages. Let's try it. But here, let's do this. Let's look at a footnote on page 351 in Rashi's script. Mem Dalet. I'm sure you're familiar with the two different attitudes of Sfaradim and Ashkenazim on putting on tefillin and the blessings we make on them. By the Ashkenazim, they make one blessing on the hand tefillin and a second blessing on the head tefillin. Yeah, there are obviously Ashkenazim that don't. Some Hasidim perhaps don't do that. According to Sfaradim, we only make a blessing on the hand tefillin, and in that blessing we include the head tefillin. Familiar with this halakha?
Yeah.
When do Sfaradim, what do Ashkenazim do? They're also worried that maybe the second blessing they make is a bracha levatala, is a blessing in vain. So what do they say?
They say like Baruch Shem Kavod.
Very good. That's what. Right after they say the blessing on the head, they say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Lamed, which is like the formula for annulling a blessing. What is the Sephardic attitude to when do we make a blessing on the head tefillin?
You're interrupted.
If we talk.
If? You said if you talk?
Or
What do you
something else.
You're interrupted.
Yeah, if you're interrupted. Meaning, if you do something between the hand and the head, so you make a blessing on the head tefillin. Why?
It's kind of like repeating the
That's it.
blessing.
Very good. It's exactly it. We're repeating the blessing, and we're saying a different blessing because really at that point, the head tefillin, the action is different than the hand tefillin. And one's lahaniach, one is al mitzvah, on the mitzvah of. And that's the only situation where we make a blessing on the head tefillin as well. So let's look at the footnote, Mem Dalet. Ken mitba'er mima shamu b'brachot. That's what we learn from what it says in brachot. You see it's in the left column, in the middle. דווקא בדברים שהם עניין הברכה אינו צריך לחזור לברך. Only about things that have to do with the blessing, do not have to then go back and repeat again. והראשונים שם הביאו מה שאמרו במנחות, and the ראשונים there bring as a proof that which it says in tractate מנחות, לעניין תפילין, regarding תפילין. סך בין תפילין של יד לתפילין של ראש, if you talk between the תפילין של יד, the hand, תפילין של ראש, and of your head, צריך לחזור ולברך. You have to go back and repeat the blessing. ולכן פסקו הרמב"ם והטור והשולחן ערוך כאן, and that's what the Rambam, Tur, Shulchan Aruch. So if you would have said, bring me my tefillin please, it could be that by there you wouldn't make a second bracha. But if you just randomly say, hey, good morning, oh, good morning, oh, I forgot that I didn't put my head today. In that case, you have to say a bracha also on the head tefillin. So interruptions are only considered interruptions if they are separate. Okay, what's the word in Hebrew for interruption?
Hefsek.
Hefsek, very good. Which is psik. It's a stop. It's a period. It's a tangent. It goes away from what you originally were doing. But if what you're saying is within the spirit of that which needs to be said, so in that situation it's not a hefsek at all. And maybe in certain cases, ideally, you shouldn't do it. But in other cases, you should. By Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, we have this like by Rosh Chodesh. At nighttime, by the Amidah,
Oh yeah,
Maran writes in Siman Reish Lamed Vav, Maran says that the Chazan or Shliach Tzibur, I don't remember what he writes there, the Gabbai, one of those words he uses, should announce that it's Rosh Chodesh so people know to add in the Rosh Chodesh parts of the Amidah. But Ashkenazim, they're afraid to do that. So they go, they clap, they call it a clap on the bima. They bang on the table and you know. Sometimes they do like that, sometimes it's, I think they go to different things. Yalev Yavo, I don't know, Shabbat, I don't know why they clap, maybe the 10 days of Tshuva, whatever it is. But the idea there is it's not a hefsek either because it's what the tzibur needs to pray properly. the community needs that reminder in order to pray properly. Maran has a similar halacha regarding an interruption after Yishtabach, before the Baruch Hu, the blessings of Shema. Over there, you're able to make an interruption if you have to tell the community, remember, it's it's Chol HaMoed, so we're going to skip certain parts of the Shacharit service, or whatever it is that happens then. That's what we do in order to tell people it's okay, and it's okay to make an interruption because it's not a hefsek, because it has to do with the meal. So that being said, if we there's a word for this in English, circle back around to Ashkenazim and not making a hefsek between washing their hands and hamutzi, if what they have to say has to do with the meal, meaning let's say you're sitting at the table and you need salt, instead of saying no, and they say, what do you need, a towel? No. You say, what does that need? You need a knife? No. Instead of all that interruption, just say, I need a knife to cut the bread. You're allowed to. Even according to Ashkenazim, you're allowed to say such a thing. Even according to Ashkenazim, you could say such a thing after you said hamutzi before you cut the bread. So how much more so you can say that before you make the hamutzi blessing? So the things that have to do with the meal, most certainly you could talk about them. I once saw somebody who said you have to be careful not to use too many words. Like say, bring salt instead of bring the salt. I don't know where they got it from. I don't know why. Why do you have to be cheap on words? You know, they say once a man joined the monastery. It was a monk. He joined the monastery. And 10 years you could say 2 words. So after the first 10 years, he said, what do you want to say? He says, bed hard. 10 years and they're suffering in a bad bed. They change his mattress. 10 years later, he says, food bad. Changes food. 10 years later, he says, water spoiled. And then 10 years later, he says, I quit. And the head priest says, it's a bad time. You've been complaining ever since you got here. Whenever they
complaints.
bring salt. Why can't they bring the salt? I don't know. If there's any halachic reason for that.